Good morning. My name's Tony Naughtin. I am a senior advisor to CENIC. I've been involved in infrastructure services and research and education now for over 40 years. I started out in the NSFNet world. More recently, I've done quite a bit of project and program work for CENIC, and I'm also a board member of the Pacific Northwest Gigapop. It's great to be here this morning. CENIC, of course, many of you are familiar. It is the organization which runs the California Research and Education Network, and it is a 501c3 benefit corporation. You can see the elements that make up CENIC, the members that make up CENIC, and it plays a very important role in the state here. I'm here to talk about CENIC Air, the CENIC AI resource, its programs, goals, and evolution. CENIC's CalRen network, as many of you know, is quite large. It's about 8,000 miles around the state as a long-haul, backbone network, and services virtually all of K-20 in the state of California. It is the largest regional, certainly in the United States, and probably the largest network of its kind globally, and has quite a few accomplishments over the last 20 plus years. And some of those accomplishments include not necessarily as much by CENIC, but by those who are participating and bringing their contributions to the CENIC AI resource. The so-called Fiona boxes, which have been renamed Nautilus nodes, are a good example of the types of development that are taking place in support of AI research in the NRP and in the PRP CENIC Air endeavor. These types of GPU-based servers solve many types of problems, particularly distributed data transfer. And I think that continued development of these types of GPU-based servers will open the door to even more advanced research and development activity. The programs and goals, and I see we have a little artifact there on the header. CENIC Air is a California-based on-campus resource primarily dedicated to artificial intelligence research. Very quick history of what is now called CENIC Air. Going back about 10 years ago, the National Research Platform and the Pacific Research Platform started developing nodes based on quite a few contributions from UCSD here in San Diego. And CENIC was indeed a first mover among research and education regionals to support a national research platform sites dedicated to AI. Why the change to CENIC Air? CENIC engineering, from the inception of the PRP, really started to become involved, since most of these science DMZ nets that comprise PRP CENIC Air are connected to CENIC's high-performance network. Therefore, CENIC engineering played a key role, at very least, in establishing the connectivity to these science DMZ nets, which are adjacent to campus networks. The involvement of CENIC became greater and greater, and it became very logical to simply promote via CENIC and its well-established active member base the endeavor of what is now called CENIC Air. It's a logical and convenient channel in which to do that. And we are continuing to have success with that approach in growing the program, as I'll talk about here more throughout this presentation. And then last year, it's now 2025, so in 2023, nearly 2 years ago, the PRP, Pacific Research Platform, was renamed as CENIC Air. And here's an example of logical distribution of CENIC Air resources superimposed over the map of CENIC's backbone network in the state. And we'll talk more about this in a few minutes. So CENIC Air, why it's important and strategic. The AI revolution is certainly not news to anyone in this room. It poses many challenges for us, of course, and a couple of many consulting firms, but these two I'm referencing here have pinpointed that artificial intelligence, broadly speaking, will cause an elimination of jobs in the labor market force, while at the same time, artificial intelligence could very well produce a net gain of jobs in the labor market force over the next 5+ years. The AI future, in this state in particular, presents an enormous promise, but there are challenges that have to be met. And in particular, the social and economic impacts of those challenges, and making sure we have equipped the workforce of tomorrow as it evolves to the AI opportunity. We hear a lot about democratizing AI these days, and thinking about that probably goes back several years on the part of people in research and education, as well as government to some degree. We're hearing a lot more about promoting the democratization of AI and promoting equity in the artificial intelligence efforts in research and development that are being made. What this means really is that we're not going to stand by and allow large technology companies and hyperscalers define the AI future for us. It's really critically important, of course, that research and education play a key role in contributing to what we define as the AI future. That's really a large opportunity, and I think here in California, there's an opportunity to lead that effort as well. CENIC Air really, I think, is a foundation for that. I think it has the opportunity to evolve into a very long-term, if not permanent, resource to support research and education, artificial intelligence research. It's obviously much different than the internet itself, but the internet, if we look at the internet, which derived out of research and education, it has become a permanent and vital resource. I think these types of research and education infrastructures for artificial intelligence over time will become as prominent, different layer in the stack, of course, but are to be viewed, I think, as what will become a permanent resource. Why important and strategic? Well, CENIC Air is, at this moment in time, we're entering into a new era with a new regime in Washington, but we believe that CENIC Air will be unaffected by potentially broad federal budget cuts that the research and education community faces, as do other segments that are federally funded. Regardless of that, CENIC Air will carry on with this important mission, with or without federal funding. Some of my colleagues that are involved in CENIC Air today can speak in more detail about that. Frank mentioned that in his talk a few minutes ago as well. But we are not stopping. That is the message here. The implementation strategy and how we're getting these science DMZ networks out there, as well as other resources that can be used to access CENIC Air science DMZs. Of course, standardization. The science DMZs based on the Nautilus configuration of hardware and software. Standardization is the key to scale and scaling good quality support. The Nautilus standard, of course, uses open source software such as Kubernetes and Ceph for storage management. There's a link there, of course, if you want to find out more details about what the Nautilus standard is, what it's comprised of. The participation options to engage in CENIC Air and use CENIC Air resources. A campus doesn't necessarily have to install a full science DMZ within its data center. And a way to get started, of course, is through the Jupyter notebooks, which are pre-programmed CENIC Air AI research nodes, of course, as notebooks, highly portable. And it gives students and researchers access to these resources, even if they lack a science DMZ net with Scenic Air on campus. And of course, these Jupyter notebooks are a great way to spread the good infection of Scenic Air and AI research within research and education. Again, there have been some great developments. These Fiona boxes, which are GPU-driven servers, are a good example of that. These are really at the core of Scenic Air Science DMZ installations. As Frank was talking about, and of course there are other pieces of hardware and software that go with those Science DMZ net based on Nautilus. Hosting locations have the option of adding their own hardware on top or alongside of the Nautilus configurations as well. A really interesting capability and really important, if not critical capability, is the ability to burst to other Scenic Air or NRP nodes that meet the Nautilus standard. And of course, this is important for researchers who don't want to face the possibility of hitting the headroom within a local Scenic Air Science DMZ node. Really the infrastructure will seamlessly take care of this for you via Kubernetes. And it's really a very powerful, important capability that keeps the researchers from being impeded due to a loss of resources or unavailability of compute processing or storage, and is a real key to the federation of Science DMZ nodes for NRP and Scenic Air around the country. That bursting capability isn't limited within California just to Scenic Air nodes. It includes all Nautilus compliant NRP Science DMZ installations around the country. And here's a logical that depicts that. I think Frank had even more detail in his presentation on this. But we're working hard towards proliferation on a national basis. As I mentioned, hosting partners can add and support compute and storage resources on top of the standard Nautilus as they may wish to. I think what's really interesting, many interesting things here, and this is not a technical presentation, it's more of a review of the program and the direction the Scenic Air program is going. But NRP and Scenic Air combined, I think these hold the potential of being one of the largest non-commercial managed edge computing resources in this country, if not globally, over time. We have a long way to go to achieve that, but I think this is the very right approach for not only for this program, but to further those who aspire to putting as many resources on the edge of the network as possible. The accomplishments, aspirations, well, the accomplishments have been significant. I'm really reflecting the accomplishments and aspirations here in terms of the number of Science DMZ nets for Scenic Air that have been rolled out over the years. Going back to about 10 years ago, most of the research institutions in the state incorporated Pacific Research Platform Science DMZ nodes, and over time, others have joined. The California State University system, as shown here, has about 5 of its campuses now that have Scenic Air Science DMZ nets, and there's a map that demonstrates that. Well, got some artifacts in here that shouldn't have been in there, sorry about that. We see our friends from the research institutions at the UC system here, including Jeff Weekly, who is here today, in their data centers with their Scenic Air Science DMZ nodes on display. The CSU system is a very important part of this effort going forward, and we talk about next generation. I think a lot of the next generation activities will take place in the CSU systems, as well as the community colleges, which are starting more and more to embrace Scenic Air and Science DMZ nets that support Scenic Air. And I'll show some information about that as well in a moment. So back to the CSU system, there are now a good number of the campuses in production with Scenic Air Science DMZs in place, and there are a number of additional CSU locations pending. And on top of those, within the CSU system, of course, with 23 campuses, there are still others that have not yet committed to Science DMZ nets, but can nonetheless participate in Scenic Air, and that's via Jupyter Notebooks. But just to show the growing utilization of Scenic Air resources within the CSU system, we see that there were 5 campuses using Nautilus Science DMZ infrastructure for research projects in 2024 last year. We have a growing number of those this year and are very encouraged by that. I think the Jupyter Notebooks and the Jupyter Hub environment that supports those notebooks are very important to continue the growth within the CSU system as well as in the community colleges in this state. And as I say, the good infection needs to be spread, and it is starting to spread. This slide demonstrates how Jupyter and Jupyter Hub have really allowed participation in Scenic Air within the CSU system even before there were very many Science DMZ installations in place. And those numbers continue to grow as we continue to build more capabilities. The San Diego community colleges are the first pioneers within the community college segment to embrace Scenic Air and bring us Science DMZ into their data center. They service from that data center the 4 community colleges within the San Diego district. And there are potentially many, many more community college districts and community colleges themselves in the state, which we hope will follow the lead that has been established by the San Diego Community College District. It's an exciting development there. And here are our friends in the San Diego Community College District with their Science DMZ installation of Scenic Air in their data center. So Scenic Air, it's an attractive option. It is very scalable. It's very supportable. I was interested in a comment Frank made towards the end of his presentation about support and reliability and what I call enterprise class infrastructure and engineering and technical support. And I think we are at a stage right now where Scenic Air is moving from best efforts to a more enterprise approach where resources will be supported 365, 724, and that's one of the attractions. I think the real message here in terms of a value-added opportunity is that Scenic Air is a type of easy button, if you will. And I recognize that the installation and support of any infrastructure, network, servers, storage, et cetera, that it's never easy. It's never easy. But in relative terms, this is an easy button to bring AI research resources dedicated to education onto a campus or even into a K-12 school district or anchor institution over time. I think the future is promising. We believe that it's quite possible within the next 2 or 3 years there could be as many as 60 or 70 Scenic Air Science DMZ installations around the state of California, which will put this state in the lead within the research and education community for AI research. And that's an exciting prospect. It's one that we're working on and trying to advance every day. The work here is the right thing to be doing. It's a very efficient way to deploy these types of infrastructures to support AI research. And we hope as many institutions that haven't yet become part of this important effort will join us in that effort. I'm going to close by saying the acknowledgments here. Of course, as was mentioned, this program is largely NSF grant funded. We also want to be sure to acknowledge the important contributions of the San Diego Supercomputing Center, UCSD and its Computer Sciences Department, and also CENIC. And I also want to be sure to make note and sincerely thank Larry Smarr and Tom DeFonte and Frank Worthwine and their teams for the terrific support and effort they have made to further this program. And they have been the real difference makers in the successes to date that CENIC Air has had, as well as the NRP, quite frankly. And we just want to make sure they're acknowledged as well. And I've tried to catch us up to the 10:30 deadline that I had for this talk. If there are any questions, I'd be happy to answer them right now, to the best of my ability at least.